Well, hey friends, we meet again, Money, Sex, and Kids, and I have the most special guest, one of my best, Amanda Walker with Feel Amazing Naked, and I'm so excited that you came over and joined me with this.
I am too. It feels very exciting to be together informally with our wine.
Whoa. See, we haven't been drinking yet.
Well, hey now.
Well, hey, cheers to that. But this is usually how most of our conversations start. We sit for hours.
Solving the world's problems.
Exactly. One thing at a time, one glass of wine at a time. But I felt it was so important to bring you on because sex being one of the big topics of this show, and sex should be amazing in a relationship, in a married relationship. But unfortunately, all of us can attest to times in our relationships where that just doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
Right? That's a problem for a lot of women that you work with.
A lot of women I work with, and also, I mean, I've experienced that myself when I've gone through my own struggles. And so that's why I think I've made the connection for a lot of women of like this place of empowerment. And we forget about sex, I think, sometimes as a connection to not just ourselves, but our spouses. And so, I mean, I think that there's much deeper issues going on when we don't have sex, and what that means, and really what can fall out of it for our relationship if we're not intentional with it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and I think the conversation that you and I had, this was just recent, is we were talking about why do women just not want to have sex anymore? Why do we get to a point, I mean, yes, we're all busy. Exhausted, you're mothering, you're working, you're all tending to everybody's needs but yourself.
Right.
And in turn, everything else suffers.
Yeah. And I think the conversation we were having came out of a discussion I was having with other women, and it was almost a justification of exactly what you said. Like, we have all these other things in our life, sex is at the bottom. And so immediately, like, my red flags perk up with my experience with clients, because what I believe is really it's a much deeper issue. And so just sharing the story that I was hearing from some of the girls, the average, I think we both have found the statistic that the average couple's having sex only one time a week. And I was speaking with these women, and one of the girls said, well, we only have sex while we're on vacation. And I said, are you going on vacation every week? And she's like, no, maybe a few times a year. And it was just sadness. Like, I just felt sadness for her and her husband, because I know that for my husband and I, and you can probably attest to this, when like, not that there's friction, but then when there's a disconnect happening, and when like your ship's passing in the night and we haven't prioritized each other or ourselves, like the act of coming back together, I really believe is like it at the root of our DNA is what it does. Like, this is what we're designed to do, right?
Yeah.
And so it connects you again, and it's like this grounding force that happens between you and your spouse. And I think so often we don't provide that opportunity to even realize that powerful connection can happen.
So how do we get so lost? I think that we all marry our best friend, we marry the love of our life, and by the grace of God, so many people have these long marriages, and they last through the seasons of ups and downs, but where does it go wrong? Like, why do we all of a sudden lose it, lose the passion, lose everything, lose the need or want to do it? I mean, I'll be really honest, there have been plenty of times where I'm like, I'm fine. Like, if it could be a couple weeks, a few weeks, and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I think that in my own personal journey and seeing now all these ladies and their connection is that the reason we lose the opportunity is all about priority. And just like our health, it's easy to make all these excuses, right? We have kids, so we're chauffeuring them around. We have careers, we have appointments, and all of a sudden, just like our health, we're at the bottom of the priority list on this list of 1 to 10. Like, taking care of our bodies is 9 and 10, when in reality, I'm biased, obviously, but I really think that it should be number 1 and 2, because it bleeds out into everything, and that's not just how we interact with our spouses and our children, but how we interact with ourselves. So if we don't put our health first, then we're also not showing up for ourselves in other ways.
Well, and I love when you say put your health first, because it's not like putting a diet first, putting the gym first. Health is such a big umbrella of such. And so much, the word self-care is used so often these days,
Yeah.
but self-care isn't
Pedicures.
No, and that's what I think the biggest misnomer
Yes.
is about that word. And sometimes I get a little tingly when I hear
I
that
do
word, because I'm like, no, it's not about that. Like, it's so much more than that. And we just don't know how to shift that priority list and put self at the top, because it sounds selfish.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You read my
Right?
mind, because I was thinking the reason we don't want to attach ourselves to that word is because, let's face it, social media has done maybe a poor job of like explaining what it is, but it is really, I try to give my clients like the permission to realize it's the most unselfish thing you can do, because if you take care of yourself, it literally creates happy juices, right, for us that we need. But it all boils down to self-confidence and self-worth, because I know when I'm feeling crappy about myself because I'm not eating nutrient-dense foods, and I'm driving through the fast food line or whatever, or I'm not moving my body, I'm unhappy, right? And that makes you shrink and not be like the best person that you can be. And I think that is directly in alignment with sex, right? I believe, like, what woman doesn't want to, I mean, just saying it, like, show up in front of their husbands, like, butt naked
And feels hot.
Yeah, and feel like so powerful, and to see the look in their eye when they're just like intently like, wow. And it's not a certain size, right? It is just having such self-worth and self-confidence in who you are, that there's this connection. And like that, when a man sees a woman with that confidence, that's powerful, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of women, they don't put themselves first to take care and to love themselves so hard that they're comfortable showing up for a spouse.
So the reason women aren't having sex, the sex is just really a byproduct of never doing the work on yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's just one of the many areas then we start to fail at. And I don't mean fail, because that does sound so negative, but I mean, we lack in those areas of our life because we've never put ourselves first, and we don't show up in any of those other areas.
Agreed.
Feeling good.
Yeah, and I'll talk with clients, I have clients who'll say, like, when I walk by the mirror, I don't even like to look at myself. And so that tells me if they're not ready to look at themselves, they're definitely not ready to show themselves in front of their husbands. And so when I have these conversations with clients, and we start to unearth like the root cause, right? That's what I always say. Let's look at the root cause. And it's really, they start to see too, like, wow, it's not my husband. It's really me. Like, I'm projecting that on my husband, but it's really me not feeling confident in who I am. And then when that confidence starts to come to them again after work, that I do with them, or whatever the case is, or that you and I have probably done on ourselves, then we start showing up for our spouses more. Because I mean, you and Chris, I know we all talk about this together, but
We talk about sex a lot. Okay, let me just tell you. Here's the table, literally, that we sit at, or at her house. Her husband, Justin's here, Chris is here, and there's a lot of sex talk going on.
Well, and we talk about it not because we love, like, love languages are key, right?
Yes.
Knowing how our husbands respond.
Yeah.
And my husband, your husband the same way, they respond through touch, communication, contact. And so what I find too, and and ladies, I'm sure it's like when you start to show up for your husbands in the way that they need it, guess what? They show up for you the way you need it.
Yeah.
And so it's this mutual energy exchange that's necessary for a successful marriage. And so I think that's the disconnect down the road is like, you're 25 years into a marriage, and now you've both probably not put yourselves first. You've allowed the kids' needs and all these other things. Maybe he's not his best self health-wise. You're not your best self. And it's not that you don't love each other and you're not madly, passionately in love with each other. It's just that you both lack so much confidence in who you are. You are not able to come together until you, like, I would say, rekindle that, right? It's there,
so much sense. And so often it seems like if he's lost self-confidence and you've lost self-confidence, it doesn't even mean that, like, even just going to therapy, which I am so a fan of therapy if you need to. But like, even marriage therapy, I think you have to work on yourself separately to then come back together. Absolutely. Because if one's lacking confidence and you've got this, you're still not going to be able to meet in the middle.
Yeah, and you need like a non-biased person, right?
Yeah.
Like this third party, like aerial view to help you see it's okay.
It's okay.
You're not broken. A lot of people go through these experiences, and if you can have communication to find the tools necessary for you, and it's not always about weight loss. Like I help plenty of women that have succeeded on the scale, but they haven't succeeded in their brain or in their body, confidence or whatever.
Which that's the biggest testimony to why people are like, I'll be happy if I get to this weight. I'll be happy if I look like this in a bathing suit. Where you meet those goals, because they're, for most people, attainable if you stick with the plan.
Goals are
right?
Okay
Vanity,
too,
yeah. But then if you keep getting to that goal and you still feel so upset and unhappy and mad inside and you're still so disconnected, then clearly that wasn't the problem, right?
Absolutely. And so you have to find whatever strategy, and it's looking at that the quick fix, right, that sometimes gets us to the scale weight isn't necessarily the sustainable answer. And so you have to merge and look at some of those other issues of, like what did, for me, I had like maybe you've had this too, but I had a moment in my life that I think really disrupted my self-image and my connection with food at a really young age as a little girl. And I didn't realize it till as being an adult, like, holy crap, that was pretty much transformational in my own self-image. And so it's really undoing all of that work and rewiring our brain to reconnect to what is it that we're truly after. It's nothing to do with hitting 150 pounds, but what's gonna give us the tools and the longevity enough to find that freedom.
Okay, so what I'm hearing and taking from all of this, people that are listening and watching right now, is you have to start with shifting your priority list. Like, you really do suggest pen to paper.
Oh, absolutely.
And you need to write it down and oftentimes then reshift it all.
Yeah, I mean, I am a huge fan of nothing fancy, but it's called the brain dump. Maybe you've heard of it.
She's a big fan of this. But it makes so much sense. And it's honestly so simple, yet we miss simplicity so often.
We overcomplicate it. Like, we want, I think in technology too, we're like,
we need an app for that, we need a program, we need this, we need to spend a lot of money on it.
100%.
No,
it's like brain dump and really assess. And I'm also a big proponent of when you brain dump, so when I teach this strategy, look at the brain dump, but then you have to look at your goals when you're prioritizing. So for instance, if focusing on health is your goal, but all of your priorities in the urgent category are related to career, then you're not in alignment with what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's where the rewiring has to come in. Is what I want, am I living the life that I want to create, or am I not?
Okay.
And so then it's whatever strategies, that I use with them. It's like, okay, you're saying this, but you're doing this. So how can we close the gap to figure out how we're going to get you to that place you're actually talking about you want to go?
Okay. So people that come to you, clients that come to you, I love just your journey in particular, because I think it gives so many people permission to start somewhere and continue to just walk this path and sort of walk into the purpose that you're destined for. And that's exactly what you've done. And along the way, you've opened up this community that you've created that now you've helped. I mean, you guys, I'm not just saying this because she is one of my very best friends, but it's not about somebody coming to her and saying, I want to lose 20 pounds before this. Yeah, you can help them do that. But what they become, the weight ends up not even being part of their goal anymore. What they become is this version that they were always supposed to be.
Absolutely.
That got lost so long ago.
Yeah, totally convoluted. And I feel like I've walked that journey myself too.
That's why you can teach it, right? And that's why you can coach somebody along the way.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we're like, we know we want to be strong women, but we can be strong with somebody on our side. Helping.
Absolutely. And I think the part is like admitting that your experience isn't a mistake.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's, I've traveled this space and I've helped clients in lots of ways, but I kind of always felt like, okay, there's more I'm seeking as a coach, but there's more I need to give to women to help them truly, just become, as you said, like what they were intended to be all along.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to so many people, so many women right now that are watching that just feel like, I used to be this way and I want to be this way, but I don't even know
where to start.
I don't even know what I was then. I don't even know if that's who I'm supposed to be anymore, or what I want to do. I don't even know how to get there.
And so then the immediate reaction is like, I need a diet, right? And the reality is you don't need a diet. You need to look at, where is it that you're really struggling with? Because it's not about the food, although we will work on the food, right? It's a component of it, but it's oftentimes women are just at this hopeless point of doing so much in life and not really seeking anything that's been long term.
Well, and I think too, we have talked about, like, a balanced approach to life is a wonderful way to strive to be, but it's okay. Like, one area of your life could be quite balanced and one could be off, but to constantly be wanting to sort of make everything balanced. And it's okay if something's down here and something's here, but sometimes we just need some help to learn how to get it all in sync again.
And having somebody in your corner, as you said, that can come in with a non-bias. Well, I mean, I look at money, right? Because you and Chris were so impactful in our lives with money. Is like, I'm really proficient in the health space, but money not so much. So it's okay to it never feels bad to say, you know what, I'm giving you some of my I need you to step in and just show me from this outside perspective, what is it that I'm doing that isn't getting me to where I want to go. Honest and cheerleading you on to the full extent and not making you feel like a failure.
Exactly. But also being honest in the space, in regards to just not totally telling you everything you're doing is perfect and right. You have to be
then that's a disservice.
Brutally honest. Okay, so anyone right now that's listening and is like, oh my God, I need you in my life, because you do need it. What I love is everything you put out there is really for everybody. So one, I love that you started a podcast because you need her brain in your life, feeding you all that good stuff. So that's a way somebody can listen to you and hear you speak to them every single week.
Yeah, absolutely. I started the podcast because what I found is that you can only convey so much in writing. And, when you listen to a podcast, you're like, they know me.
Yes.
They're my friends.
They're talking to me. She's my sister.
Yeah. And so I felt like, okay, to really, sometimes I feel like the work I do, and have shifted to over my journey is hard to, put a pulse on, you know what I mean? So it just felt like the natural progression to say those things out loud that I think we need permission to hear and listen to as women, but also as men too. So the podcast just kind of came into be because I'm recording it in my closet, very
which I love,
budget friendly.
But you did it. You're doing it.
Yes, and it's not perfect.
And that's not what you preach.
And it's gonna just be as it is, and just it's better to get it out there. Just like women, it's better to get started than just to keep repeating that same cycle.
But that right there, you're doing what you say to your clients.
True.
Just start. Right?
Yeah, just start.
It doesn't
0
have to
to
be
1,
perfect.
Hardest part.
0 to 1. It's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a way for all of us to get your voice in our hearts and in our minds every week. Tuesdays.
Yeah,
New
Tuesdays,
stuff.
Feel Amazing Naked
On
/podcast. And iTunes and Stitcher. It feels, fun to say that.
Right? Yeah. And it drops on Tuesday.
It drops. Oh, yeah, that's
right. I know.
I told you, it drops. I always told her I wanted to say that. I remember seeing somebody on MTV, Music Awards one time, and they used the word drop. And I was like, oh, that sounds so cool.
See? we're still so cool.
We are. Yeah,
that's what
really
I love.
Relevant.
Yeah, very relevant. We're with the young people still. We're still really hip. Okay, and then beyond that, your program, it's really for a lot of people, for a lot of women. There's so many people that could utilize that, but there are people that really do need you. And how do those people find you? I mean, how do you know if they're going to be the best fit for you, or you're going to be the best fit for them?
Sure, I think you have to be in a place in your life where you're openness and you're willing, as you said, to really, I want transformation, right? I don't want to get a quick fix approach. And so my program opens up a few times a year, and it's through application. And so filling out an application, because I just want to know that the women are ready for what I'm about to give them, because it's probably unlike anything they've ever really experienced, because it's not just food. It's a lot of inner work and a lot of mindset and a lot of tools that are more qualitative, right? I feel like we're just bombarded by numbers, and that doesn't really like soothe your soul. So yeah, there's an application. The next program will start in January, and there's an application that you can fill out, and then we just connect. Like we hop on a phone call and we just look to make sure we're a good match and that we can help each other accomplish the things they want.
Which I think that's so different than a lot of things that are out there, because so often you sign up for a program to help better yourself, and that was the whole sort of idea behind doing any of this, was just bettering ourselves together, right?
Yeah.
And so often you sign up for something and you feel like just a number, you feel like just an email, you feel like just another one. But that's what's so different, is it's a small cohesive group that you take on
Absolutely.
at once.
And that's, to be just quite honest, I've experienced just the email stuff, and it wasn't fulfilling my soul as a coach either.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really was like, am I doing the work I'm meant to do here?
Yeah.
And my answer was no. So it's like I desperately crave that connection, and I think that what the bigger part is, the women who I'm working with desperately crave community, because the reality is, it's like, you know, we're here talking about sex today, but we're like, as a culture, you know, maybe it's just our generation, but like we're just like constantly tearing each other down. And that became really powerful for me in the last few years, was like, we need to provide a community and these conversations where we're building each other up and saying like, it's okay, we've been there, we've gone through times where, for me, I was like not ever gonna let my husband look at me with my shirt off, and we were not having sex.
Yeah.
And you're okay, that's okay to say, you
Yeah.
know? And so I think that's what I was craving in my coaching too. It's like just authentic connection.
Exactly. And I think that for the longest time, everybody, you know, has been told, or even, you know, our parents' generation, it's like, you don't talk about those things because, you know, we can't let the neighbors know that we have that problem, or we're doing that, because they might talk about us. But in reality, guess what? Your neighbors here, there, all around the block, everybody deals with some form of this, and probably most every woman out there has dealt with some sort of sex issue
Absolutely.
of not wanting to do it because of themselves. Like, they just don't love themselves.
Yeah. And I didn't even realize, I mean, till we talk about it, but I've been in other platforms where I realized I was so passionate about the sex conversation.
Yeah.
Because I just kind of thought, like, I knew I'd had my own struggles, and my husband and I are super honest, and I'm open with people about it to say, like, it's not been perfect.
No.
Like, but I just didn't realize that so many people struggle. And, you know, I was hearing from so many people, like, you know, they schedule sex every other, or every third Sunday of the month. And I thought, man, it's so missing what it's intended to be, this authentic, like, magnetic connection between you and your husband. And it's like, why is that happening? So it's like, the more you dig in, and the more I was having conversations with women, I was like, this makes my heart break. This is not how it's intended to be. And it doesn't matter. And you guys have been married how many years? Are you guys
11 years,
right?
yeah.
Us 13. So it's not like we're newlyweds.
Yeah.
You know, we got some
Sure.
experience
Yes.
under our belts. Yes. And so I don't think, I mean, let's talk, and, you know, we'll be sitting here when we're married, you know, for twice as long, and I hope, like, in the same place, because we're continuing to talk about it.
Continuing to talk about it, and just like with anything, you have to continue to work at it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't just like meet a goal and then just be like, okay, I'm gonna throw away everything I learned or did to get there and just hope it all stays forever.
Absolutely.
Anything worth keeping is gonna take practice, it's gonna take time and effort. Just
Yeah,
like
I say
your own-
easy come, easy go,
it's,
right?
And it's probably one of the truest statements out there. It really is. So I think that the goal, you know, just with all of this, and to keep the conversation open and going, is that, you know, it's you're not a bad wife, you're not a bad mother, you're not a bad any of that if you are listening to this and just are not into any of that, and don't. But there's probably a chance that there has been time that has lapsed way too long that you haven't taken care of yourself.
Yeah.
And not from a physical standpoint necessarily either,
No.
you know? I mean, I think about that when you brought that up. I can think and see some of the most beautiful outward, you know, out on the outside women that I don't really know on the inside. And then when I come to hear their story, I mean, they were so deeply hurt and so just messy on the inside, and so desperately needed to like match the inside on the to the outside.
Yeah, and I think that the more I learn too, it's like it's all a journey of healing, really. And it's not that, you know, sometimes the word healing feels like a little bit like, you know, tragic.
Yeah, or that you had to have some traumatic event to
Yes.
be healed.
But you don't. Like, it's a succession of experiences we have in our lives that bring us to the now. And so I believe that a lot of our issues with food are deeply rooted in some of those, those wounds, I guess you could call them too. And it's like you can't compartmentalize food, right? If to say, here's your prescribed diet, and here's this, it's just like you can't separate that from sex, from marriage, from being a parent. It all goes together. So then it has to all be treated together.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. It's such a holistic approach to it.
Absolutely.
Really, when you think about it. And I mean, ultimately, I think we want to be as whole as we can with our time that we have here in this life that we hope we're living on purpose.
Sure, I agree.
See, sex is fun to talk about, right?
Yes.
But really, I think ultimately, it's just learning through experiences and learning to love yourself. And if the goal is to have more sex, you've got to learn to love yourself to get to that goal.
Absolutely.
End
goal.
And cheers to finding girlfriends that you can
Yes.
have wine with, talk about sex, and nobody's rolling their eyes.
Yeah, nobody feels judged, and you can be open and honest about it.
Okay, so before we wrap it up, reminder, iTunes and Stitcher, Feel Amazing Naked Podcast. Doesn't that sound so fun to say?
Yay.
I'm giving her another round of applause because I'm so happy.
And to you guys too, because you took this massive pivot, already taking action, and we get to do it together, which is really fun.
It's because I have somebody like you pushing me behind
likewise,
and helping.
Likewise, yeah.
So we can find you there, and then applications are open. We can find you on all social media platforms. I'll make sure at the end of this episode on the very bottom, links to all of that.
Sure.
Links to your social media, your A Walk My Way on Instagram.
Yep.
And Feel Amazing Naked on Instagram too, which is all the same. But check her out for sure because you help everyone live a better life.
Thank you.
From the inside out.
Thank you for having me. This
Cheers,
was fun.
sister.
We should do this every week.
Okay, let's do it.
Perfect.
That was good.